Steve Ledoux is our representative on the Minuteman Tech committee, but I'm not sure, Steve, if you're the one who will be doing the presentation. Maybe you can introduce us and kick us off, and then if we have to, hand it over, we can give it to one of your people. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's certainly been an interesting year for Minuteman Tech, opening up a new building and having a banner year for applicants. It's been really, really terrific. And then, of course, COVID-19 hit. I want to introduce Bob Girardi. He's our finance director. He'll be walking you through the presentation for the FY21 Minuteman budget. So I think Bob's on. So
he is.
I'll turn to him.
Bob, you should unmute your mic.
Hey.
There you go. And if you want to share a screen or have a presentation, that you can do that.
Yeah, I would like to. I'll start off by thanking a few people from Concord, and then I will share my screen so I can share with you a PowerPoint. So I wanted to start off by thanking Steve. He's been a wonderful resource to Minuteman as our Minuteman School Committee representative. He's also on the Finance Committee, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. So he's been a great resource for us at Minuteman. And I also want to thank Christine Reynolds, who is the Concord FinCom liaison to Minuteman. She attends all of our school committee meetings, and she does her due diligence. So wanted to thank both of them. Before I got started, now I'm going to share the PowerPoint, if that's okay with you. Let me get to shared screen. And I'm hoping that everybody can see our PowerPoint. Does that look good?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so I'd like to start off.
Screen mode, we might not see your notes, but that's your call whether you want to have us see your notes or not.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So you can see that this is our budget proposal. Our budget theme is managing our success. And that beautiful picture is looking out the front doors over the Lexington skyline, what we see every day when we walk out of Minuteman. The next slide is actually the reverse of that picture. It's looking at the front doors of Minuteman. And, this is a building that is just an amazing, inspirational building with untapped potential. I say it's got untapped potential because it was built with the school committee's vision to support very specific programming, some relatively new program and developing programs on the cutting edge of technology. So everybody feels blessed to be part of Minuteman, and I know I do. There's a journey and a history. That's why we labeled this this presentation "Managing Our Success," because there's been a lot of fulfilled expectations getting here. After a 5-year effort beginning in 2010, Minuteman members voted for a new regional agreement. In 2016, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education approved a capital fee on non-district towns. The new building was built 1 year ahead of schedule and on budget. And the most amazing result of all this is that we've seen increased enrollment from member towns, and that's resulted in only 14 out-of-district freshmen this fall. Enrollment beyond the design capacity of 628, we're projected at 649, and a waiting list for member and non-member students. We've seen a turnaround in enrollment that we haven't seen in fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. This slide kind of represents that in chart form. You can see in dark blue that the member towns have increased significantly over the last 3 years. The withdrawing towns and non-member towns have decreased significantly. And we're projecting out that in 3 to 4 years, there will likely be only member district students at Minuteman. The budget that we're proposing tonight is $20,931,014, which is an increase of 6.4% in our operating budget. The building project debt service is $4,571,932. $4,571,932, which is an increase of about 47% in our budget. This was the big year when the debt that has been borrowed has come in, and it's a big expense, and it's a big increase in our budget. Like most other districts, we have similar increases in drivers. Some of ours are related to things like the enrollment increase, and others are to the debt service. So district technology went up because we have a one-to-one initiative, but we had the largest freshman class enroll in decades this year. Next year, we're going to have another banner year as far as enrollments. So we're seeing huge expenses in district technology. Transportation is going up, which seems counterintuitive because we are losing a member district, but the cost for transportation has significantly increased. And in fact, we had a bid opening that was above this. And so we've actually rebid it. And tomorrow we'll have another bid opening. And we're hoping to get bids that will be at this level. So we knew it was going to be expensive this year, going out for a new 5-year bid for transportation. We've already found it will be, but we're hoping to get down to that number. Things like athletic services, we haven't developed our fields yet. And so we have to rent more fields for our students to participate in their sports. And of course, the bonds, like I said, came in this year. So those expenses significantly increased this year, although we did get a great rate on the new bond that we went out for this year. The last item that I just clicked on was the Belmont departure. That did impact this budget significantly, and it impacted each member district based on enrollments and the other factors. In Concord's case, your increase would have been $103,483 less approximately. So having Concord leave the district had a big impact on all of the member districts. And for Concord, it's about $103,000. This is a breakout of the preliminary assessments with a total assessment of $1,213,873. And you can see the breakout between the building project and the other expenses. And this is the breakout of the actual increases and decreases in the assessment. And again, those are often related to student enrollment, which Concord has had pretty stable student enrollment, increasing, but not as much as a lot of the other member districts. So full enrollment is now here. And we use this slide to kind of highlight that past and then, managing our success. In the past, low member enrollment was the norm. And now the new norm is that we almost have full member enrollment, and ultimately we will. Full access to all programs, students could pick their programs, and now we're seeing waiting lists for member districts, let alone non-member districts, and member districts have a priority. 30 to 40% non-member districts will be 0 members by fiscal year 24 if the projections are true. And as a result, non-members will escape that capital fee. So that capital fee that we've been using to offset the debt service will likely go away in 4 years. So the new norm, it's managing our success is the new norm. This next slide shows historical enrollment so that you can see how there was a decline in overall enrollment over the course of from many, many years. But in the last 2 years, how that enrollment has significantly increased. The color coding also identifies the member districts during those periods. So at one time, we had 16 members. Over the last 3 years, we had 10 members. And fiscal year 21 shows that we'll only have the 9 member districts that will be maintained. As far as very specific Concord 8th grade applications and admissions, we had 14 applications this year for the freshman class coming up in fiscal year 21. 9 were admitted. And as of April 30th, 9 of those that were admitted committed to come to Minuteman, which brings you to a total of 28 students who will be in Minuteman next year. This is a little budget history slide because we do want to make sure that everybody knows that when we did have declining enrollment, you can see years where the operating budget was decreased significantly. And, the administrators talk about right-sizing the building then. As we now have these changes where we're having increasing enrollment, we have to right-size the building to accommodate the full membership. And so that's what we've done this year, is to right-size the building for the number of students and the programs that are going to be operating in the budget in fiscal year 21. So we go to the slides on challenges now and ahead. The withdrawal of the towns from the regional districts means that fewer members will be sharing in capital and operating expenses. So the great news is that our member districts are using the facilities, but now we won't have those extra resources to help offset the cost. High enrollment will create waiting lists for students desiring high quality career and technical education who live both in and out of district. We're already seeing that this year. And little of or no out of district enrollment means reduced or non-existing tuition revenue, which we've used this year in this year's budget, and I'll show you later on, to try and offset some of the expenses more than we have in the past, and also the capital fees to offset the assessments regarding debt. So again, it's tough managing our success. This slide actually shows you our revenue plan. You can see that where the operating budget was increasing by 6.9%. Our original estimate was over 9%, 9.5, I think, but we were able to, again, try to reduce where we could and try to be as prudent as possible to get it down to that number. We also increased between fiscal year 20 and 21. If you look at the current year tuition, I mentioned that in the past, we've put in about $400,000 of current year tuition to help offset the capital costs and the total budget. And this year, we've increased that to $600,000. And the non-resident capital fee is listed in fiscal year 21 as well, because this is the first year we have it to help offset assessments. So there's one more. That link that you'll see on the screen right now is a wonderful link of the first day at Minuteman. You'll see the students and staff, their reaction to this wonderful new school, and they are so eloquent in speaking about the benefits it has to them educationally already. So I would encourage you to go to that. We actually have a couple of extra slides on this, but those slides really talk about the amazing programming we offer, and that's for people to read and get to know that our students are succeeding at extremely high rates. But that said, this is really the question and answer period. So if there's any questions that people would like to ask of me, I'd be happy to speak to them.
Well, thank you. I'll start it off with a very simple question. As we are now seeing that the school is starting to be populated by only member towns, I was just noticing the selectivity that was obvious in the Concord applications. 14 applied, 5 were declined, or 5 withdrew. It's not clear why 5 were not accepted, but that's a pretty, for an alternate school opportunity, that seems like a pretty stiff bar that 5 out of 14 are not accepted. So hopefully this doesn't get worse. I don't want to have a high selectivity.
This is Ed Boquill, and I'm the superintendent. I'd like to respond to that, Chairman. We cannot assume that those 5 were denied applicant. We had a lot of students who didn't complete the application, and normally we try to put that in there. Of the students that want to come, 100% of them that we offered admission to came. So I believe the other 5, probably most of them, were not complete applications within the time frames that we require.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was going to add the selection process is a process that everyone goes through. And so sometimes along the way, not everybody, follows through. So I was going to add the same thing.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Mary.
I have a question. It seems to me that the assessment that Concord has in its budget right now for both operating and the debt is not that much different than you presented to us on February 13th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm wondering, I know that a lot's changed. You said it yourself because of the pandemic. And right now we're kind of consumed with the health and safety, but there is an economic fallout that's going to hit us pretty quickly. And I'm wondering, are you getting pressure from the other member towns to look at spending? And if you have, what are your thoughts right now on how you could cut spending because we're all going to be facing some fiscal constraints?
Well, that's a complex question, if you don't mind. We're a regional school district, and as you know, if we don't have the majority of our towns pass our budget by June 30th, we have to go on a 1/12 budget. We're preparing for that 1/12 budget, which is based upon this fiscal year. So we're looking at a worst case scenario, hoping for the best. But if your question is, are we getting pressure from other towns? The answer is no. The pressure that we're putting on our budget is coming from us because we know the challenges that are facing all of us in this time. We're pretty sure the governor's budget numbers are not going to be the ones that hold up. House Ways and Means is supposed to come up with some numbers very soon. I imagine they're going to be fairly conservative in revenue projections,
right? And
we'll have to respond to that.
Right.
So.
Sort of as an aligned question, and there I'm going in the darkness. I have a motion sensitive. It's left the lights on way too many times, and they ended up with this motion sensitive thing. So in this mode where we've just shut down the schools and everybody's trying to do distance learning, technical education is severely impacted because a lot of it is very hands-on. There's a lot of, there's a lot of things that you do by manipulating the environment, whether it's auto mechanics or baking cakes or whatever that it might be, or even working in a biotech lab setting. There's a lot of things that you do that don't really respond well. How are you managing that scenario now? And as we move towards the fall, how are you managing to think about that?
Well, it's being managed. I'm sorry. Career and technical education in this state has a very high bar. It's very hands-on. It's very rigorous academics and very relevant career and technical competencies. They're industry-recognized credentials we're preparing kids for. And we've been able to work with some of the licensing boards. When I say we, I mean the entire state of career tech educators. The licensing boards have agreed to provide our seniors with up to 75 hours, give or take, depending on the trade, with counting online instruction towards their hours, towards an apprenticeship license or a credential of some kind. So it hasn't been anything we've had to do alone. The challenges for providing online learning in a remote distance learning, it's impossible. You can't do it, There are some online simulations which have become very sophisticated over the last few years, and some of our programs are doing some of that. The vocational technical teachers are very skilled when it comes to using the technologies we've been deploying. Since the beginning of March, we were actually preparing for a closure before the closure happened. We took time off. We closed school for a couple of days so teachers could all get trained. We could make sure everyone had the technology. This is the first week of March or so. So we're doing the best we can. There's a lot of checking in going on. I don't think we're going to have much opportunity to do anything prior to summer when it comes on helping kids start to practice those competencies, regain what they've lost. And looking towards the fall, we're planning to have a staggered opening. We're already over the design enrollment of the school. Those of you who know the Minuteman saga will know that we tried to get a larger school than we ended up getting.
Yeah.
Some people wanted a much smaller school than we have. But our design enrollment is 628. We're going to be 30, 40 kids over that in the fall. So we're not going to be able to have a full school. We know that. So we're looking at prioritizing CTE instruction, prioritizing freshman academics in math and English especially, and letting them have a good experience for exploratory. This is not a long-term sustainable situation for career and tech ed as it's offered in the state of Massachusetts. Right. If it goes much beyond, I'm looking at the post-vaccine world is going to be even not normal.
Yep.
So we're trying to stay ahead of what we know is best for our kids, what the industry requires us to be able to do. And, the Department of Education hasn't been focused on CTE, but fortunately we have enough superintendents in the state. And fortunately the commissioner has kind of given us the go-ahead to do what's best for us. So we're planning on a COVID environment for the next 6 months. I'm planning on, budget-wise, we're going to have smaller classes. We may have to have more buses. Every regional school superintendent's going through some of these things, and CTE, it's just remarkably challenging. And, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, which I'll remind you all to thank your teachers in Concord and Carlisle and Concord-Carlisle Regional for the great work they're doing, because it is remarkable work.
Thank you very much. Other questions from the committee? Well, thank you, Adam. Let's look and see if we have any questions from the rest of the attendees. I don't see anybody with their hand raised at the moment. So thank you. I think we can move on to our next agenda item.